Welcome. This is Talib Kareem with Abe Legal, and I have an exciting guest that is slated to join us just shortly. But before she comes, let me just tell you a little bit about what Abe Legal is all about. We are a platform that has dozens of lawyers from across the country that are available for you if you are looking for someone to help out with an estate issue, which is what we're going to be talking about today, or you might have a car accident, or you may have a family law issue, or you may be a small business owner seeking counsel as you seek to expand or even just get started. You may be a nonprofit organization trying to file your 501c3 application, or applying for a grant or some other financing. This is the platform for you. We are a platform specifically dedicated for people of color, as well as people of the Islamic religion, for example, people who have been probably discriminated against, who don't have easy access to lawyers all the time. We were formed with that idea that everybody should have access to high quality lawyers. So if you're looking for a free lawyer, this isn't the platform to turn to, at least at this point. But if you're looking for a lawyer who can get the job done, who can fix the legal problem that you have, then you've come to the right place. And we have, again, extremely seasoned lawyers, like the lawyer that we're getting ready to introduce you to today. And so if you have a question specifically about what happens to your social media accounts after you die, or who can even get access to make an announcement to all your followers, how do you maybe continue generating revenue to support your family members? All these are questions that we're getting ready to, actually answer for you right away. So without any further ado, let me bring on our very, very, very special guest, all the way from Texas, particularly Houston, Texas. And that is none other than Attorney Eraka Childs. Eraka, how are you doing?
Hi, doing great. How are you doing?
Good. Now, how is the weather down there in Houston?
Well, today we have some storms, so I am actually working through the home office. When we have our storms, we never know, because we're the city of bayous, so we can always have floods at any time. So, but besides that, everything is going well. I'm safe and sound.
Excellent. We certainly do want to make sure that all of our brothers and sisters who are down there, I have actually a younger brother whose family lives not too far, I guess a few hours away from Houston and Dallas. But of course, our former boss, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, is down there and running for mayor, as I understand. And so if you are out there in Houston, like Eraka Childs is, we want to ask you to go to the polls. And because this is a corporation, I can't tell you who to vote for, but you can perhaps read the lines of who I might
say, take somebody with you to the polls.
Well, you can tell somebody who you want to vote for. You can say who you want to vote for, but I can't actually say who I want to vote for. But I do have
my entire family is voting for Sheila Jackson Lee. And when you go to the polls, make sure you take someone with you. Get somebody in the car and give them a ride. If there's an elderly person that didn't do early voting, go ahead and pick that person up and then give that person a lift. Or if there's a person with a disability or someone who just doesn't want to drive, just call in with your friends, see who hasn't gone to vote yet, get them in the car, and you all go.
Well, I like that. And in honor of both you and the Congressman, you see I have my pink bow tie on.
Yay!
And in fact, I understand there are so many AKAs in Houston that the Congresswoman could win if all you guys get out to the poll. I hear there are thousands of AKs. Is that correct?
That's correct. We just get everyone out, take a family member or friend with you, and then that way we'll make sure that she's in place. Houston needs her. We're looking forward to having her as mayor.
And I think that this kind of a good segue to this conversation with you, because it is a understanding the Congresswoman and her commitment to serving the people. If you understand that, then you understand who you are, and you have a really beautiful background. And I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about that background. And so if I was going to pick up a book called The Making of Eraka Childs, and read, the chapters from college to today. Can you give me a kind of a quick, 1 to 3 minute summary of how that might read, the audiobook version?
Yes. Eraka, born to two really loving parents, great brother, grew up in the legal field. My father was a lawyer, and then being inspired by what he did and seeing his passion for working towards justice for people who had a lot of money, and then sometimes people who had none at all. I learned to just have a passion for helping people with whatever talents God gave me. So I was very fortunate to spend a lot of time in courtroom watching a lot of other lawyers growing up, how they presented, how they treated everyone from the janitorial staff to the clerk, to the coordinator, to the bailiff, to the judge, and realizing that every single person there is important. Every single person there has a story. Every single person there is affected by policy. And our policy, our legal policies, political policies actually impact everyone's position, their positions in this world, financially, residentially, everything except maybe spiritually. But, in a way, policy also affects people's mental health. So it does have some impact on us spiritually as well. So that's why I wanted to use the privileges that I've been given to find ways to help other people. So that's what I've been doing. From legal law, legal departments in employment law, and then kind of veering off to working in our family's law firm. I've just found different ways to be able to assist the public, advocating for equal rights in the workplace, making sure that things are fair so that people can provide for their families, to now helping people protect their legacies through estate planning and asset protection. And also in the family law courts, making sure that people's families and the rules applying to them reflect their values. So that's really what I've been doing, and it's been a privilege to do it.
Well, that's a really great background, and I want anybody who has any questions to go ahead and put them in the chat there. And if you like this content, of course, feel free to share it. Subscribe to the channel, and you'll get all kinds of updates on the other lawyers that we have. And if there are any questions that you have that are not answered during the show, then if you are a subscriber, you'll get updated on whatever is responded to. So definitely go ahead and do that. Now, let me go back to that question, to that issue that you mentioned. You said that your father was a lawyer, and that inspired you to go into the practice of law. Can you tell me a little bit? There are not that many Black lawyers in America, but to have a 2 generations of lawyers in the family, how was that when you were growing up, and how did that impact both your law school experience as well as coming out of law school?
Yeah, my father was a business lawyer. He was also board certified in family law. He just had a wonderful way of communicating with juries, and so he did a fabulous job in family law jury trials. He was a law professor for years, about 10 years, and then became board certified in family law. He actually was, I think, the second Black person board certified, Black male board certified in the state of Texas in the area of family law. So it was, he had a great personality, just a big and tall man with a big and tall personality. And it really was wonderful to be able to grow up and to go with him and spend so much time with him in the courtroom. So I think that's something that very few people really have the privilege of doing, Black or white, to actually see that up close. And it really was a blessing to me. And I know that he was a blessing to a lot of other lawyers in Texas as a mentor.
And as I understand, you continued his work eventually after, doing some other things, but coming back eventually to continue the practice. How was that like?
Yeah. It at first, when I came out of law school, I went into labor and employment law, and that was exciting because I got to travel the world and got to meet all types of individuals. And then upon adopting my daughter, I went back into the family business. And you know how when people think going into your own business that you'll be able to control a lot of your schedule, it's kind of right, but you actually end up working even more than you ever dreamed when you're working in a family business. But it was wonderful to be able to have that time with him. I learned a lot from him, and I think the biggest thing that um, I was able to monitor is how to treat even your opposition with respect, and by using the rules and making sure that your client's side is properly guarded and protected, and you're advocating for that client, that you can do that with decorum in class, with civility, and you will still win. And not only will you win, and you can really tear up the other side's argument, but you'll do it with so much class that people really have to tip their hat to you. So I think that was one of the most valuable lessons that he's taught me, and that he's actually taught his mentees, who are now his mentees now. Let's see, I've been practicing 26 years. He has their mentees out here of my father's who have been practicing a good 30, 35 years now. But I think that is probably a lesson that a lot of people need to hold to heart. In the courtroom, in the church, in the mosque, you can have disagreements about a policy or about a side of an argument, but you can do it with civility. There's a way that you can do it.
Well, I appreciate that perspective. And I was actually reflecting on my own father, who was not a lawyer, but he filed numerous class action lawsuits on behalf of both himself as well as other litigants. He was a consummate pro se attorney in,
Oh,
many
awesome.
in many lawsuits. And I am growing up looking at how much he fought and how much he struggled. I had in my back of my mind I was going to totally do something different, but I now find myself, almost following his footsteps to some extent. So I know how that great legacy, having such a great legacy can be, and how it can open up your eyes to a whole new world. So thank you for sharing that perspective. Now, going to the issue of estate work. Now, how did that, actually come to be? And I have a couple already, questions that were posed to us. We want to get those, thrown out there to you. But tell me, what is estate law, and how did you actually come into the practice of such?
Sure. Estate law, to kind of give you everyone a shorthand version of it, estate law is how determining who actually someone's heirs or beneficiaries are upon their passing, and then also what were their wishes in regards to their estate, their real estate, their personal property, and who did they want to actually oversee the administration of it. That's estate planning, the post passing. But there's also estate planning that deals with what's going to happen to us while we're alive. In the event, for example, I can't make a decision for myself. Let's say I'm sick or something else has happened, or I can't go to a real estate closing. I can do some planning ahead to let everyone know who legally is my agent. Um, let's say in the event I become ill later in the future. Well, I don't want the state to say who's going to be my guardian. I can actually nominate who's going to be the person handling my matters in the event that something happens to me and I can't do it. You can make a lot of decisions about your life right now and also your life in the future through estate planning. And it's just really another way of staying in control. Now, why did I get into this particular field? Why do I like this particular field? Well, actually, I got into it. I kind of fell into it by friends calling me 10 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m. Friends calling me at those times because there's an emergency in their family. Either, their parent has been rushed to the hospital, or something is going on with their husband or their wife, and they need advice right then. So I said to myself, well, you know what? If my friends weren't so rushed and in a panic, then they could feel a little calmer about the process, and they'll have more time to think things through. They won't have to be rushing to an emergency room, or calling because someone's being admitted into hospice. If I can talk to my friends early on about this, then I can help them feel more in control and give them a sense of calm about what's happening to them and what's happening to their loved ones. So that's really
So you
how
mean basically if people made their essentially wishes known by having either a trust, a will, or a power of attorney, something along that line, or medical directive, is that what you're talking about?
Exactly. Then they'll feel a little calmer and more control. Because the interesting thing is, a lot of times people who are very organized, this is the one area that they put off. Like
Right.
they'll do everything else, and you'll look and everything's so meticulous, but they never did that, or they said that, oh, I'm going to get to that, and they don't, and they may even have things drawn up, and they just never executed. Or they might have had a trust prepared, but they never put the assets in the trust. It's yeah.
So that's actually what I want to ask you about. Can you define for us some of these terms that we've been kicking around? Trust, will, probate, power of attorney, medical directive. If you could just kind of give us a quick, you're the professor, Professor Childs. Give us a quick rundown of what those words are and what the benefits of having either a trust, a will, a power of attorney, medical directive, burial directive. And I want to give you a fact pattern. Let's say you have a person who let's say you have a member of your sorority, aka really dynamic, has her own. Yep, she is a member, and let's say she's even a social media star. So she has a good following online, and she's making some money. And then all of a sudden she gets sick. And now, nobody's able, because she's basically been running her own show. She has all her access to all of her social media accounts and stuff like that. What happens immediately? And then ultimately she dies. Can you talk through the steps of what would be the best, vehicle or tool for her in this toolkit that we're talking about in terms of an estate plan, between a trust, a will, a power of attorney, a medical directive, or burial directive? Can you go through those 4 or 5 items and let us know what would work best for her?
Sure, certainly. Well, a will, some people say last will and testament. It's a document in which you would say who you are, that you're of sound mind, that these are your last wishes, and you'll instruct someone to file your will with the court to be probated. Now, in your will, you'll nominate an executor, and you will state what your assets are and how you want those assets to be distributed. What people often forget is that a will has to be probated. So it will be a public document. So there'll be an inventory. It'll be a very public process, and it can be costly. In a trust, you can actually state who the trustee is, and while you're alive, it may be you, and you may decide that it's a third person. You can decide what all assets will be owned by the trust. A trust is private. It does not have to be probated. And you can actually avoid disclosing certain assets through an inventory process by placing those items in a trust. In a trust, you can have successor trustees. You can name who the distributees, the people receiving distributions from the trust, will be. In addition to that, there are ways that you can avoid, you can protect your assets through having a trust. And you can control when those distributions are made. For example, let's say you have a child with special needs. You can create a special needs trust so that child will be able to receive his or her government benefits. You can create in the trust rules for children, meaning that maybe you don't want anyone to have their distributions until they reach the age of 25 or 35 or 40. You might say that You want there to be a requirement that anybody receiving distributions must have a marital agreement or premarital agreement in order to receive those distributions. You may put in there a requirement about drug testing or a requirement that they must go to vocational school or college or armed services. You can make rules in that trust in order for people to receive the benefit of the trust. But one of the best things that people enjoy about having a trust is the privacy. The privacy. Now, what is the medical power of attorney? That's when you just
So
designate.
let me just ask you, going in there.
Mhm,
If, let's say, for example, you have this trust, you get
mhm,
sick or you die,
mhm,
and you have this, 100,000, or 300K
mhm.
social media following. What
Mhm.
happens to your social media accounts? How can,
Sure.
how does that trust actually maybe save you money or save you time in
Mhm.
terms of helping your family members to even notify all your followers that you passed away, or
Yeah.
even continuing to generate revenue on the
Mhm.
platforms that you've created?
Yeah. The great thing about your trust is your trust really can own shares of a corporation. It can own shares of a LLC. The trustee, like most people are alive, they may have a revocable trust, right? In which they are their own trustee. But your trustee and your successor trustee can actually make the decisions on behalf of the trust. Of course, in your trust agreement, you're going to have your rules regarding what the trustee is allowed to do, but that trustee is able to make those decisions for
So
you.
essentially, if you what you're saying, if you have a trust, then it's almost kind of like its own business, if you will.
Mhm. Exactly.
If you're, for example, if you need to have people come and access your social media accounts, you can name the trust
Mhm.
as an owner or an authorized agent of your social media for your social media accounts, and
Mhm.
then therefore give direction to either the companies that you have these platforms on, or you can create a digital wallet that has all the passwords for
Mhm.
that social media, those social media accounts, and make your trustee or your trust, if you will, a user of those social media accounts. Is that what
Mhm.
you're talking about?
Exactly, exactly. It's its own, it's like a person. And you get to designate who takes over in that role after you pass. Mhm.
Now,
Or you become disabled. Yeah.
now, going back to that question, what is the difference between having a trust and a will? In
Yeah.
terms of time, money, what are the benefits of one versus the other?
Sure. With a trust, you're able to avoid going to probate court. Now, sometimes people forget to name an asset, title an asset into the trust. We call it funding the trust. So let's say you have different assets that you've placed into the trust, but you forgot one asset. Typically, we will have what we call a pour over will, or a will that can handle that one asset. So you'd probate that one will. But the great thing about the trust is everything else is private. You're not disclosing all of that business of yours to the public through the court system. Everything is private. No one is going to get all of that information besides your trustee. Your beneficiaries, the distributees of the trust, the successor distributees might have some access, of course, to information pertaining to the trust, but the general public will not. It is discreet,
And,
and with
and
your
that's a
will, you
that's
have
a
to
very
do
good point. If I could interrupt you there,
it.
because in this day where people are literally targeting people based upon
Mhm,
court records,
mhm.
having even your home, disclosed,
Right,
and how much the home costs, and what
right.
all the jewelry or other assets
Mhm,
that you might have, which will have to be disclosed if you have
mhm.
a probate. Am I
Right.
right or am I wrong?
That's
And
right.
so the privacy, that's something that a lot of people don't realize.
Mhm.
Keeping all this information safe and outside of the public record where no one else knows is a very great asset to have it.
Mhm.
And then going back to issue of costs, so what is generally the difference between having a will done versus a trust? How much money will you have to spend, for example, during the probate process? And how much money do you save if you have a trust? Can you talk to that a little bit?
Sure. With a will, it might appear that having a will is less expensive than having a trust, but it really is not, because by the time you go through the probate process, and by the time, let's say, if you're blessed enough to live a ripe old age and you need a guardian, by the time you go through the guardianship process, you're going to spend a good 4, 5+ times more than you would have paid for the trust.
So what are we talking about? Like, you do these types of things all the time. How much does a family, let's say the last probate estate that you had to, administer or serve as counsel for, how much did they spend in total for the entire process?
About $15,000.
$15,000, and that's probably a simple one. So you got a $15,000 amount of money that you had to spend.
That's
and as an attorney creating a trust, how much would you have to spend to create a trust?
For trust, about $7,500.
So you
$7,500. But here's the thing, because with the will, that's just with that one probate. But keep in mind, most people get sick and they have to go through a guardianship process even before they have that. So that could be another $10,000, $15,000 right there.
So you're talking about $30,000 possibly.
Yeah. And then if they're married, and keep in mind, if somebody's married, that's 4 times in court.
Wow.
For the wife, the husband, the wife.
So that's $30,000 times 2. So you basically $60,000 you can save by spending, maybe a fraction of that, basically, by creating a trust. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. Because you don't have the publication fees. You have to do the filing fee when you have a will. You have the attorney's fees, right? You have the court fees. There possibly, in a guardianship case, there will be some court-appointed attorneys also, because you have to do the investigation to make sure the person really needs a guardian. So you're looking at a whole bunch of extra fees, and it just starts adding up. You have the newspaper publication fees. There's just a lot. Constable fees. In a probate case, it adds up. And even when there's a will, it could add up.
And that's the thing people don't realize. They think, okay, well, I have a will, it'll save me, money. But in fact, you still have to spend the same amount of money, perhaps a little less. And let's talk about what are the benefits of having a will versus not having a will. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, at least the court will know what your wishes were, and you get to choose who gets the items. Whereas if you don't have a will, then the legislature, the state legislature has chosen for you how it's going to be divided. They've already chosen who your heirs will be, not who you want it to go to. And here's the thing: you may have already given, for example, a particular child a lot of money. You might have put somebody already through grad school, but this particular child, you haven't, and you want to leave this particular child a little bit more because of that. Or you might want to skip over your kids altogether and then give your assets to your grandchildren. A will lets you have that power. The state legislature, they don't. They've already said who's going to get your assets. They've already said it. So either you choose or the people in the state legislature will choose for you. So.
Now, it's really important that you say, especially for Muslims, because not only do we have to be buried in a certain way, we have to also be mindful about how our assets are distributed. And so if you die and you don't have either a will or a trust, then all of the requirements that you want to, have honored and your wishes will probably not happen at all. And in fact, your body can be disposed of in a way that's totally against your religious beliefs. So that is one of the major reasons why we all should have a will, but more importantly, a trust, which most trusts, as you probably know, Attorney Childs, will include, as you mentioned earlier, a pour over will. So you get a will and a trust, and generally any package that you create. Is that not the case?
That's so true. That's true.
Now tell me, let's go back to this issue. What is a And I understand, in addition to a will, which comes with a trust, a lot of the trusts also come with both a medical directive and a burial directive. Can you tell us what a medical directive is?
Sure. A medical directive will state specifically how you want to be treated in the event you can't make certain decisions for yourself. What do you want them to do? Do you want them to resuscitate you? Do you want them to leave all types of utilize all types of medical tools at their disposal, or do you want to just be made comfortable? It's your instructions to your physician of how you want to be treated in the event you can't make those decisions for yourself. So.
Now, I'm so glad you mentioned this, because I'm going to share a personal story with you. That my father, as I mentioned, was a civil rights leader, and he was a city councilman in Memphis, Tennessee, at the time of his passing. And I was living here in DC, and so as he was passing away, we drove on down with my siblings, who were all in college back in those days. We were with him. Everybody else had gone home, and I was there. And he wanted to communicate with me, but he had some type of medical thing like that comes a breathalyzer. I was talking about the things that are intubulator. Any of the doctors who know, who are checking this out, let me know what it's called. But it's basically intubation, I think, is what it's called. When they're making you, they supposedly making you comfortable, giving you more air, is what they said. But he couldn't talk. He could not talk, and he asked for it to be removed, and I communicated that, and the doctors pushed back and was said, hey, well, we want to keep it in. And so having a medical directive, how could that have made a difference in that type of situation? And I note that they said, okay, well, we'll remove it the next day, and he'll be able to communicate with you. And of course, I came back the next morning, and it had already passed away. So tell me, what would be the difference of having a medical directive in that type of case?
Because that would have given at least the legal department at the hospital at least a little bit more what they would feel cover in the risk of removing it, because his physicians probably were certain that if they did, his time would be a lot shorter, and they were trying to prolong it, not really taking into account, the patient does have rights. The patient has the right to feel comfortable, but each of us has the power to decide, what do we want? And we need to make sure we put that in writing while we're able to, before there is an emergency. Hearing about your dad's experience, what do we want? If that's the case, when we get to the point where we say, hey, take this out, then, a patient should be heard. And it's great to have that advocate there with that legal document in hand, so that even if the doctor says no, you can say, hey, let me talk to your legal department. Let me talk to charge nurse. Let me talk to the chief. Let me bring whoever needs to come down. And that way you can make your loved one more comfortable. But I think having that piece of paper, and your loved one having that piece of paper in hand, gives that loved one a lot of authority, a lot of way to push back. And it's forced, like you and I, like we would know that, right? And then we could call some friends up if we're distraught, and our friends would have our back. Lawyers' friends would have our back. But just think, if you're just, your regular mom, regular daughter, you don't have like lawyer friends to call up when you're distraught to take over stuff for you, that piece of paper can be all the power they really have. So at that time, so if you don't have that power to take care of your loved one, I can't imagine how devastating that is when you're not in a position like you are, or like I could be, calling up friends to take over,
And, and again, that goes back to the whole point of how valuable, having a trust, is. And while you of course have to pay a little bit to get it, created, it is going to pay back 10 to perhaps 20 times its value for your family, especially in terms of that just peace of mind that I would have had, and of course my father would have had he been able to spend his last night just communicating with me all of his wishes, and giving me, imparting upon me some advice that I would have loved to have been able to play back in my mind for the rest of my life. So that's one benefit. Now let me also ask you about another aspect of your practice, because I know that in addition to providing families with the support in creating trusts or wills, you also have a nonprofit practice where you're helping faith communities. Can you talk a little bit about that work as well?
Yeah. Now, this has become a real passion of mine, working with the church and really going and talking to people in the community who have certain talents, like musicians, who are setting up choirs, who are setting up little orchestras, youth orchestras, talking to artists, and they are creating foundations to help support youth in the arts. This has become a huge passion of mine. And one of the things that we've been doing in the community is setting up organizations and really not doing all of the legal business organization that we need to in order to be able to access grants, donations, just so many opportunities out there. So what I've been doing is spending a lot of time in the community, talking to various artists, talking to ministers, talking to musicians, and really seeing what we can do collectively to make our community an even more beautiful place to live, and a great place for our children, to give them the opportunities that so many of us wish we would have been able to have. So that's become a big passion of mine.
Well, that's amazing to see how many, types of clients that you are helping every day. And again, if you need to, if you need an attorney and you would like to, again, have somebody like Attorney Childs represent you, then you can go and use those numbers that are on the screen right now, 202-517-6982. And again, even though that's a national number, meaning it's based in Washington, D.C., which is our headquarters, Attorney Childs is in Texas. We have attorneys in Arizona. We have attorneys in, all over the country. So it is really a beautiful platform to have, of course, attorneys like Attorney Childs available to assist you. And of course, you can also check out the website for Abe Legal as well. And that will be also coming as well on the ticker. But Attorney Childs, let me ask you, I know one of the things that you also are involved in is our youth. You have a daughter.
Yes.
I understand she's at Prairie View A&M. Is that correct?
She is a proud Panther.
All right. So, what is your, as you, kind of wrap it up, what are your thoughts about this tragic, skyrocket almost in youth violence, particularly the carjackings that are taking place? Almost, someone was saying almost every week is 1,000 carjacking in places like Chicago, in DC. It's so crazy where just yesterday, a FBI agent was carjacked. I mean, literally, and his car with all the tactical gear was taken. And I guess the people must have realized that they were going to get in a lot of trouble, so they got out and left it. But this is outrageous. And in some cases, I mean, they're using guns and shooting the people, during this kind. And these are young people. One police officer a couple of days ago, my fraternity meeting was saying that it's like 90% of the young people in Prince George's, 90% of the carjackings in Prince George's County, which is not too far from us, is being committed or are being committed by teens. What is your thought about what needs to happen to address this emergency, which is happening all over the country, including there in Houston, as I understand as well?
It's with our youth. In the past, I thought I wanted to work more with adults to try to address a lot of these issues. And then it dawned on me that really we do have to reach out and spend more time with our youth. Young people are having all types of inabilities to cope with reality. They're watching things on social media, watching TV. They're seeing how people, dress and act towards one another. And they're starting to think that this is real life and that something's wrong with them if they don't flex like this, if they don't have this, if they don't live like this. And all of them trying to reach for a certain look and attain a certain, what they feel is a level or lifestyle, but they haven't put in the work. So we as adults have to spend time with our young people, not just in large groups, but in smaller groups, and listen to them. And we have to make sure how we conduct ourselves is a manner in which we show them the value of work, the value of staying classy, the value of helping other people, and the value of accepting ourselves. We don't have to drive a certain type of car. We don't have to get everybody else's approval. We don't have to sit up here and wonder, how people are going to react to me or to you. We have to stay focused on doing what is the right thing for the right reason, knowing and having faith that those doors are going to open to us. But in order to get in people's heads with that, we have to reach them really young. We have to start on them when they're 2, when they're 3. And then we start working with the people who are teenagers now. We have to go in and communicate with them and see what was in their mind or motivated them. And so look at how we can start ebbing and controlling those motivating factors. But we can do so much with these teenagers that to really get to the root of it, we have to start with people that are 1 and 2 right now, because it will just get worse. These 1 or 2-year-olds are going to learn and do it bigger and better than the 15-year-olds. If we don't hurry
that's a very, very brilliant statement. And, something also you mentioned in terms of, being accountable yourself as an adult, as a parent in particular. You may be, into social media, TikTok, and all kinds of things. But one of the things that in TikTok is you can't control what comes to you, relatively speaking. Someone can say, you scrolling down, they can say the most vile thing. And if your child is nearby, of course they're going to hear this. And,
Right.
And the question I was just thinking to myself, how many curse words does a child whose mother or father or are tuned into social media, TikTok, for example, how many curse words do they hear every day?
Right.
Or let alone if they're actually watching some of this content, how many outlandish and crazy things do they see every single day? And so the question that we have to ask ourselves, I know we may enjoy these platforms, but what is the responsible way to use them? And is it responsible perhaps to even watch or tune in while your children are awake? With some of this stuff, personally, it seems to me it might not be a good idea. What do you think as we close?
No, I agree. I agree 100%. Because when and I'm a child of the 70s, so back then in the ancient, or my daughter said the 1900s, in 1970, like adults we didn't hear conversations that adults were having, and we didn't hear adult entertainment. We didn't hear there were children, and then there were adults. We didn't engage. Nowadays, children hear adult conversations. And I see it in my family law cases, and I see it just out in the public. Children listen to adult music. They read adult things. They see adult videos, and they don't have to sneak. When I was a child, people would go and have to sneak to listen to Millie Jackson, or sneak to listen, try to figure out what Bobby Bland was saying. We try to figure out, all these things. B.B. King, what does he mean by that? But now they don't have to. It's out there. And not only is it out there, but they know the songs. They can sing the lyrics backwards. And they know all the dances. They know everything in the adult world as children. So I think that, I know that has a big impact on it, because we are mixing up the roles. We're combining who's a child and who's an adult. And we're letting them say adult words and bad adult words at that. Adult words, and engage in adult conduct when they're still in children's bodies. and they still have children's minds. So that's on us. That's on that's our failure as adults. That's not on these kids. That's our failure.
Well, I think you are absolutely correct, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join us this afternoon. Of course, if you are in need of estate planning counsel, if you need nonprofit counsel, even business and litigation counsel, especially throughout the state of Texas, either in the state courts or the federal courts, then you can contact Attorney Childs either at www.abe.legal, and that's not .com, but it's .legal. We got one of those fancy domain names. Or you can call us at 202-517-6982. Attorney Childs, I know you've already voted already, right? Have you voted yet? Okay.
I've already voted. I'm good.
I know you're going to get all your sorors, all thousands of them. I understand there might be about 50,000 AKAs in the state of Texas alone, not to mention those in Houston. We encourage you to make sure you get them out to the polls, and we'll look forward to hopefully celebrating with you on Election Day, which I guess is not this Saturday, but next Saturday. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
All right. Well, let's get out to the polls. Again, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but I will tell you that my former boss was Sheila Jackson Lee. That's all I will say. Well, with that said, I will definitely look forward to enjoying the outstanding work that you continue to do out in Texas. And again, we have really enjoyed having you. Thank you so much, Attorney Childs.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, again, that was a wonderful interview with Attorney Eraka Childs, all the way from Texas, and she's doing an amazing job. If you need any legal work done at all in any area of the law, in anywhere around the country, then all you have to do is use that phone number 202-517-6982. If you are a lawyer and you're looking to grow your practice, if you're a great lawyer but not great with YouTube ads, or not great with social media promotion, or not great with search engine optimization, then you are welcome to come to Abe Legal. We have helped we've helped dozens of lawyers generate hundreds of thousands of dollars. In fact, over $1 million in excess revenue through their time on Abe Legal, and we'd like to help you as well. So again, check us out. Give us a call at 202-517-6982, or just log on to www.abe.legal. Again, this is Attorney Talib Kareem with the Abe Legal Podcast. We've enjoyed our time with you, and we look forward to having you on our next program, enjoying all the wonderful content, all the great legal advice, or legal information, at least, that we offer. So without any further ado, have a wonderful day or evening. Ciao.